story of Figment starts around 9 years ago, involves 3 lawsuits on 2 continents, and me being sued for millions of dollars. Really one of the darkest periods and most difficult times of my life. But through tenacity, the kindness of strangers, and a strength that I never knew I had, I came out the other side. And now I get to do a job that I love every single day. This is our origin story. I'm Neil Glover, and I'm the founder and coffee roaster at Figment Coffee. So about 9 years ago, I was working in the oil and gas industry. I'd left my last employed job and started my own business. The focus of that business was in the US. So I've been traveling over there for about a year, trying to get the business up and going. And then one day in January, just the sky fell in. There was a knock at the door, and there was a group of 7 or 8 people, and they had a warrant for a dawn raid on my home. They then proceeded for the next 9 hours, to secure my wife and my young son in one of the rooms and search the entire property, every room, for stolen confidential information, which of course I never had. I was sued for millions of dollars. They sued me personally, they sued my business, so there was no escape. If I lost everything. My house, my car, everything. This went on for 4 years. And all that time, I was trying to get my business up and running. Obviously, I didn't have spare money to afford an office. So I was meeting people in coffee shops, basically conducting my business from coffee shops over in the States, mainly in Houston. And then, just as I was searching for nice places to go, places to mix it up, I went to a coffee shop called Greenway. And I had a drink, I had a latte that literally changed my life. It seems ridiculous to say that. I tasted this drink and it was like nothing I'd ever had before. The coffee I was used to back home was sort of particularly dark roasted, bitter, after dinner, sort of just about palatable. And this drink was silky smooth, sweet, velvety, delicious. And I just started to ask the questions, why? And the guys at Greenway were absolutely lovely, and they started to explain how they roasted their own coffee, that they brewed it in a special way. I just fell in love with the specialty coffee scene. I found a place called Ascension, and I would turn up in the morning, afternoon, late night, and every single time the coffee tasted amazing, the food was delicious. They served wine in the evenings, just perfect spot. And I would ask the guys, what is this, a chain? Who owns this? I found out the answer was this guy, Russell Hayward. So as I'm sitting in Ascension, I phoned him up, and he was like, well, I'm actually in the roastery just around the corner if you wanted to pop in and say hi. And that absolutely staggered me. And this complete stranger was basically inviting me into the heart of his business with no agenda. And it just felt so different to what I've been living through for the past year or so. And that made me start to really think about what might I do if all of this goes wrong, if I don't survive, what am I going to do with my life? And I just started to fall deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of discovery about specialty coffee and the farmers and the roasting and the processes. And I had this spark of a thought, this figment of my imagination, that maybe I could start a specialty coffee roastery back in Scotland, and I could bring what I found in Ascension and in Greenway and these other places in the US. I could bring that back and I could create that. then started, so family holidays would then be to specialty coffee shops, like all over the US, all over the world really. And I then started to take the idea more seriously. I started to educate myself about coffee. I started to train, ended up training all over the world, in London, in Copenhagen. I felt like I was moving towards something. But all the while, these lawsuits were ongoing. It was like a cloud. So for 4 years, even in like my happiest moments, where like my young son would do something that would make me laugh or smile, every time in the pit of my stomach, the cloud would come back over and just say, yeah, but you just might still lose everything. So just remember that. Eventually we ended up in the federal court in Houston. Getting to that point was a huge, huge achievement. After 5 days and the deliberations of a 12-person jury, we were exonerated completely. But I have to tell you, the moment when the judge announced the verdict, I remember stepping out of the courthouse and I felt the sunlight on my skin. I could see further. I could taste the air. Every sound seemed to be amplified, and it was unbelievable. And now that emotion overrides everything. I'd flown back, and my wife and my son were waiting at the airport. So my son obviously knew everything that happened because he'd been part of it. He knew that we called them the bad guys, and he knew that we'd beaten the bad guys. And he was still at the age where I guess he was still excited to see me. And he just ran on his little legs right across the concourse and just into my arms. That was an amazing, amazing feeling. So, the end of this 4 years, we'd won, but it had become more and more important to me that I had to do, on an emotional level, I had to do something positive out of everything that had happened. And so I made the decision to order the coffee roaster and to take out the lease on this building. And I guess that was really the start of the journey of Figment. So the name Figment, so it was a word that sort of embodied all of the hope that I had nurtured all the way through what had been a very difficult period. And it's about the power of imagination, imagining actually like winning this thing. Pigs might fly, sort of doing the impossible. So I only know one poem. Like my big brother taught me a poem when I was like 14 years old. And it was, "The time has come," the walrus said, "to speak of many things. Of ships, of sails, of sealing wax, of cabbages and kings. And if the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings." And at that moment, seeing that, having the name of Figment, the whole thing just fell into place for me. So in creating Figment and in creating this space, I suppose I was really trying to create my ultimate coffee shop. It seemed to me that there wasn't that many places that an adult could go to take refuge. And that was something that was really important that we tried to capture with Figment, that it doesn't really matter what's going on like at home or in work, there was somewhere you could go, even if it was just for 15 minutes, having a beautiful cup of coffee, that you'd leave that place feeling better than when you arrived. It's so important to me that we do positive things with the coffee. And so, setting up Figment, we want really nothing less than to seek out and to roast the best coffees in the world. We want to source them properly, source them ethically, develop relationships with the people who grow the green beans, and then we want to roast them to the highest possible standards. I hope that in every cup of Figment coffee, people will find a little bit of magic. And if I can recreate for somebody the moment I had all those years ago at Greenway coffee, and that I could find a coffee that changes somebody's life, that would be amazing.